sorry, yeah. Anyway, no, we're obviously here to talk about something very serious, and we just want to start by saying a massive thank you to the Lucy Rayner Foundation for having us. Thank you. And to all the Rayners, it's such a privilege to be here tonight and to be talking, just doing our little bit for you. You do the most amazing work, and yeah, we're just really honoured to be here and to be talking, so thank you. So yeah, myself and Danny, we're going to be sharing our story. It's a bit of a difficult story in parts, but just please keep in mind that it does get better. It does get better when you're listening. So myself and Danny, this is us in more recent times. Lived together in Clapham Junction with our housemate Ben. But as you heard, myself and Danny, we go way back. We first met at drama school in 2005. And yeah, things were very different back then.
Were they?
Yes, they were.
Yeah, things were very different back then. Jonny and I were in a year, each year was 28 people, so it's a very tight-knit group. And so 90 people, 3 years, so everybody knew everybody, but it was only till, I don't know, 2 years after university that Jonny and I realised actually what was going on behind the scenes, and started to open up and talk about our mental health with each other, and actually all the things that we had experienced whilst at university. Thank you. So the fun and games, those of you that have been to university, you know you've got freshers, there's a lot of, you drink a lot, you party a lot, you wear your mask, it's disguised, all the feelings, all the things that we were actually going through, we didn't know until many years later. So I'll let Jonny tell you a little bit about his story, and then I'll tell you a little bit about mine.
So yeah, my story starts very young. This is me when I started secondary school. My mental health challenges started actually when I was around 5. My parents took me to a child psychologist when I was 5 because I wasn't sleeping properly and I was very anxious and I was quite violent. There was lots going on. So we knew that there was something there from an early age, but we didn't talk about it growing up. I didn't really understand any of it. But it got really, really difficult when I reached secondary school. I felt really different to everyone else at school. I felt like I couldn't fit in. And I just didn't understand what was really happening internally. Externally, everything seemed alright. I was doing okay at school. But yeah, internally in my head, things got just more and more difficult. I started to get really, really low moods. Didn't understand why, and I was tearful and there'd be no reason. But when I was sort of 16, 17, I started to suffer from suicidal thoughts and feelings. And then it became really scary, and I knew that, you know, there was something going on. I didn't want to tell anyone because I was embarrassed and I was scared. So I kept it to myself. Secretly, I went to my doctor when I was 17, and so I was referred on to CAMS. So for those that don't know, CAMS is the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service, so the mental health service in the UK for young people. I was seen by a psychiatrist at CAMS, but unfortunately there was a long waiting list after my assessment. This was my assessment. Long waiting list, and I gave up waiting. I just said to myself, do you know what? I just got to do this on my own. I can't be that bad. I just got to get on with it. Which is why, you know, again, the work that you do is so important. You know, those waiting lists are horrendous, and they're just getting worse and worse and worse. So yeah, honestly, the work you do is just so vital. So I tried to just carry on as best as I could. I thought I'm going to go off and study. I'm from London. I'm going to go off to Manchester and study, and that would solve all everything in my head. I really believed that. And yeah, off I went to university. to drama school, and that's where I met Danny. But again, I thought everyone at drama school at university was having the best time of their lives. Everyone just seemed so happy all the time. You know, in those pictures you saw early on, everyone just seemed always really, really happy. So I thought I was the only person there that was struggling. So again, I kept everything to myself. But things got really, really, really tough. I had a breakdown in my third year. So this is me just before my 21st birthday. So at this point I became psychotic. So I lost control over what I was doing and what I was saying. I felt like I was being possessed, and I ended up in the streets. I was screaming and shouting, and I couldn't control what was going on. And that led me to being admitted to a psychiatric hospital. And when I was admitted, I was given a diagnosis of something called schizoaffective disorder, which is a combination of schizophrenia and bipolar. That was a massive shock. I knew that something wasn't right in my head, but I mean, I was not expecting that diagnosis, and it was a massive blow to me and to my family and to my friends, and I spent a month in this hospital before I gave up. There was literally no future. There was nothing. There was no hope. It was just so bleak. And a month into my stay, I made the decision I was gonna run away from the hospital. I was gonna go to a bridge, and that was it. There was no other way forward. So that was it. And so the next day I ran away from the hospital. I said I needed a cigarette, and they let me out, and I ran away, and I ended up on the edge of a bridge. Fortunately for me, there was a stranger that was walking past, and he stopped to talk to me. And I know I'm not the only person in this room tonight with that story, and some incredible guys on my table that have been through a very, very similar story. And hats off to you, because it's tough. It's so tough, and what you've done, what you're still doing is amazing. So anyone that's been through that, going through it, it's so tough. But yeah, I was so lucky. I got talked off the edge by this guy. This guy. He was just incredibly kind and human, and it was just unlike everything I'd experienced in the hospital. The hospital was just too difficult, but this guy was just, complete opposite. And he kept saying to me, mate, you'll be alright. And he said to me, don't be embarrassed, you don't need to be embarrassed, because I was so embarrassed about everything in my head. This diagnosis that I got, I was struggling with my sexuality. I come from a Jewish family, and couldn't deal with any of that. But just for this guy to say to me, don't be embarrassed, it was like a massive weight off my shoulders when he said that. And eventually I agreed to come off the edge and to go for a coffee, and we didn't get the chance because the police turned up at that point, and I was taken away and I was sectioned, and that was the moment that me and this guy, we split. And I was taken away, I was sectioned, and taken back off to hospital. And at that point I'm going to hand over to Danny to share some more of his story.
Thank you. So Jonny's left me exactly 3 minutes, so you're going to get an abridged version here. No, it's very important stuff and Jonny's sharing his story, but it is also important to bring light to these things, because only by doing so do we increase the conversation, get people talking and remove the stigma? So we try and bring a little light into our stories where possible. So, me, Danny's story. So I was born in West London, 26th of March 1986, in a place called Hammersmith. Some of you may know it. A fairly normal upbringing, whatever normal means these days, right? I had a mum, dad, roof over my head. But it all changed around year 7 for me. So once I left primary school, I went into secondary school. I think I was 11 or 12 years old at this point. And my mum, she was 8 months pregnant and she had a near fatal car accident where she miscarried, she lost her baby. So following that were a number of years where her mental health deteriorated. It was, first of all, it was bipolar disorder, then it was emotional unstable personality disorder. It went through a number of phases through the years. But I always had this little mantra, no matter what's happened to you, there's always someone else worse off than you, so don't moan about it, crack on, keep calm, carry on, all those kind of things that we hear. And so I ended up at university. This is chopping forward a couple of years because Jonny's not left me very much so. But I ended up at university and it was my escape. I went to Manchester University, I left London. I felt very guilty actually because on one side I'd been given this incredible opportunity, but I had mum who wasn't particularly well, who was in and out of psychiatric hospitals, and I also at this point had 2 sisters, so I felt a lot of responsibility. But my uncle said to me, you need to go and kind of carry on with what you're doing and we'll support mum as best as we can. So I got out to university, we had great fun up there and we made some really good friends, but again, to highlight, a year of 28 people, and Jonny and I were very close, and we had no idea that all of this was going on behind the scenes because I can't speak for Jonny, but I didn't want to burden anybody with this. Why does anybody want to hear my problems? So we didn't end up sharing this stuff until a lot later. So I graduate from university. I'm very, very lucky. I secure a very good agent, and straight away I land a few TV gigs. And on paper, I'm doing very well. If you ask my peers, how's Danny doing? Well, they would have said, Danny's smashing it, Danny's probably top of the class. But actually, what I wasn't or hadn't been doing was processing any of that stuff that had been going on with mum. And it had been building and building and building. So I'm on these TV shows, life's great. And then I get this. My sister sends me this. I didn't even know that police used Twitter at the time, but my mum had just gone missing and she was very vulnerable. She had checked herself out of a psychiatric ward, and so I'm filming a TV show in Canada and I get this, and it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster. But I came back and mum was okay. But not long after that, I landed another TV show, so work was keeping me on this high, but actually behind the scenes there was a lot going on. And at that point, my dad very unexpectedly passed away, so this sequence of crap things just perpetually happening. And so I end up back in West London. I bought a flat close to mum to support her, and again, this was the flat that I bought, but I don't show it to kind of boast or gloat. I had this stuff and I had everything that you'd think would make you happy, but I wasn't happy actually, I was very unhappy. And the icing on the cake was that I was supposed to start a job with the BBC. I was on my little scooter on the way there and I fell off the scooter and broke my leg. So I ended up back at home, in this lovely flat, just sitting there by myself, alone, with my thoughts. And they began to ruminate, how I began to ruminate and think about life and really start to kind of feel guilty, feel bad about mum and the situation she was in, feel stupid that I'd fallen off the scooter. So, about 2 weeks after this cast came off, I went out with some friends. I probably shouldn't have been out drinking at that point, but it was kind of like my big, I'm free, I can go out drinking again. And I got some bad news on that night out, and at the end of that night, I took myself away and I attempted to take my own life. It was very unpredicted. Although I had been feeling low, I didn't know that I was going to get to that point. But the alcohol certainly didn't help because I guess my inhibitions were gone, and that happened. And it happens for many, many people daily, actually. And so I didn't want that experience to mean nothing for myself, for my mum, for my friends. So I began to study and I began to try and understand what mental illness really was and why mum was in that position she was in and why I had got to that position. And I just want to share, through some interesting conversation this evening on our table, I just want to share a couple of facts that some of you may or may not already know. 1 in 4 people are struggling or will suffer with their mental health this year. So on a table of 12 people, you do the math there, what that actually means. And I actually believe this year, these statistics from last year, what does that mean with the global pandemic? What are those numbers now? 84 men a week take their own lives in the UK. For every 1 person that takes their own life, 20 others attempt. And I guess with these numbers, it's to demonstrate, but not to shock, but to show, it's a lot more common than we think, and it's so important to increase that conversation and talk and ask people how they're doing, but really ask, when we walk past at work and we say, how you doing? You go, yeah, good mate, thanks. You, yeah, all good, see you in a bit, bloody at lunch. We're not really asking and we're not really creating a space to get that response. And if you take anything from this evening, take that away. When you ask, truly ask, and when you are asked, try and be congruent, try and be genuine, as difficult as that may be. Just say, if you're having a bad day, say, because only at that point can people support you. Time check.
So the journey continues. For me personally, it's been a long journey. It's been a long journey, and the journey carries on. I'm really lucky. I've had, I've had some amazing times over the last few years. I actually got to reunite with the guy that stopped me on the bridge. We were reunited. We've managed to do some amazing things. So there's been some amazing highs, but there's also been some really difficult moments. My mental health issues carry on. They always probably will do. This time last year, I was back in a psychiatric hospital, and that was really hard because of obviously the COVID restrictions. That was tough. But look, I'm here, and but I can't do it alone. With friends like Danny, honestly, and the support around me, I wouldn't be able to do it. And again, this is why I'm so grateful to all of the work that you do and the support that you give to people like me, to people like Danny, to people like Danny's mum. Honestly, you'll never truly know the impact that you make, honestly.
And for me, the journey continues in other ways. This is Mum, this is Sky. At the moment, touch wood, Mum's been very good for about 8 or 9 months. She's really working on her own well-being. Not every day is perfect, and we don't expect them to be. That we just have the infrastructure in place. If it's not going to be a good day or a good week or a good month, we know how we need to step in, and we know how we can support her, and we know when to step back, and that's the best you can do sometimes. Was this my bit or your bit? Your bit. Okay.
We're almost done.
Yeah. So we've taken our experiences and we go and talk to everybody and anybody. We do a lot of work with kids and schools and universities. We're both very passionate about that. And just making both our experiences worth something. So we really appreciate the Rayner family having us here this evening. I feel very privileged. Jonny invited me to this event because he needed a sidekick, and actually then reading up on Lucy's story, I'm just astonished and amazed by the work that you continue to do in her name. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, this is us again. Self-care Sundays, as we call it. So join us tomorrow for a self-care Sunday. If anyone's at the hotel, we'll be doing face masks. Danny will, when he's not in his underwear. Yes, we know now that we both of us, we need to look after our mental health, as well as obviously those around us, Danny's mum. But we need to look after our mental health, and we need to talk. I think if there's anything that I've learned in this journey, it's talking. Talking is the most important thing. And if anything has touched any of you tonight, then please do have a conversation with someone on your table, or come and talk to us. We'll be around. We'll be working the dance floor in a bit. But no, we need to talk, we have to talk, and as well as talking, we also need to fundraise. So please, please, please give generously. I think the raffle, the auction's about to start, and yeah, please do dig deep. Do dig deep. I've only had to. Do dig deep, because we need this more than ever after the year and a half that all of us have had. Last slide. Yeah, that's our final message. Talk, share, care, and